What does it take for a nation to rewrite decades of painful history? Today, we're looking at Zimbabwe's $3.5 billion compensation decision, a historic reversal of the controversial land reform launched by Robert Mugabe over 20 years ago. Will this bridge old wounds or deepen new divides? Stay tuned for a full breakdown, and if you're interested in Africa's biggest geopolitical stories, be sure to subscribe to Mwaki Insights for more. In 2000, then-President Robert Mugabe embarked on a massive land reform initiative, a move that would radically reshape Zimbabwe's landscape. The goal? To reclaim land for Black Zimbabweans who had been historically dispossessed under colonial rule. Mugabe seized over 4,000 commercial farms from white farmers, arguing that it was time for the country to take back what rightfully belonged to its people. However, this wasn't just a straightforward land transfer. With little preparation, Zimbabwe's economy soon buckled under the weight of its own ambition. The rapid drop in agricultural production, once a top contributor to the country's GDP, sent the economy into a tailspin. The inflation rate skyrocketed, leading to hyperinflation that crippled the country and saw the Zimbabwean dollar become virtually worthless by the late 2000s. The redistribution process favored political elites and military allies rather than everyday citizens, a fact that created resentment among those who expected meaningful land access but never received ****. Food production plummeted, causing severe food shortages that affected millions and forced Zimbabwe to depend heavily on food imports. Now, 2 decades later, Zimbabwe has pledged $3.5 billion to compensate the displaced white farmers. This is not only a monumental decision for Zimbabwe, but also an unprecedented case of a government compensating former colonial settlers. The compensation plan is intended to rectify a painful chapter and restore Zimbabwe's relationship with the West. But here's the catch. This financial commitment comes amid an ongoing economic crisis, with Zimbabwe struggling under inflation, a high debt burden, and continued international sanctions. The question many are asking is, where will the funds come from? Some speculate the funds will be sourced through loans or aid from international financial institutions, which could come with terms that impact Zimbabwe's sovereignty. So, who will pay? The Zimbabwean government has indicated they may turn to foreign aid for part of this compensation package. However, accepting foreign loans has its own consequences, potentially increasing the country's debt and creating new pressures from international financiers. Black Zimbabwean farmers now face displacement themselves, as compensation often entails vacating the properties to reinstate former ownership structures. One of the most contentious aspects of this compensation is the displacement of black farmers who received these redistributed lands. For many, these farms are not just places of work, but their homes, communities, and legacies. Black Zimbabweans, who have made these lands their own for decades, now face uncertainty about their future. Many feel betrayed, as the land they were given under Mugabe's reforms represented an opportunity to build livelihoods after generations of exclusion. Imagine building a life for over 20 years, only to be told you have to vacate your home for someone else to reclaim ownership. This decision is stirring up mixed reactions within Zimbabwe, with many citizens questioning whether this is a necessary move for progress or simply appeasement for international approval. Some analysts say that this displacement could generate resentment and further social instability, potentially disrupting Zimbabwe's fragile recovery efforts. On the global stage, this compensation has had a ripple effect. Western governments have welcomed the decision, viewing it as a step towards restoring property rights and trust. This could open the door for Zimbabwe to re-establish financial ties with the West, a move that could lead to an easing of sanctions. However, African nations remain divided. Some see it as an act of compromise that could foster international cooperation, while others feel it undermines Africa's broader struggle to reclaim economic sovereignty and redress colonial wrongs. By compensating former landowners, Zimbabwe hopes to repair its international image, potentially leading to a lifting of the economic sanctions that have burdened the country for years. Leaders across Africa are watching Zimbabwe's handling of this issue, as it could set a precedent for other post-colonial nations grappling with similar land restitution issues. So, where does this leave Zimbabwe? On one hand, there's hope that compensating white farmers will unlock new opportunities for trade and investment, providing much-needed capital to revive the agricultural sector and lift millions out of poverty. However, there are also concerns that by appeasing international interests, Zimbabwe could be overlooking the needs and rights of its own citizens. Will this compensation create a more prosperous and equitable Zimbabwe, or will it create yet another chapter of division? With foreign loans potentially in the mix, Zimbabwe's path forward may risk dependence on international creditors, a challenge that could restrict the government's economic autonomy. Advocacy groups within Zimbabwe are already voicing concerns, pushing the government to ensure that displaced black farmers are provided for to avoid another economic and social backlash. Zimbabwe stands at a crossroads. The decision to compensate white farmers is undeniably historic, but its success will depend on how the government handles the delicate balance of justice, economic progress, and social equity. Zimbabwe's story reflects the ongoing struggle of many post-colonial nations attempting to right historical wrongs while building a viable future. If you enjoyed this in-depth look at Zimbabwe's journey, hit subscribe to stay updated on Milwaukee Insights as we continue exploring the world's complex geopolitical stories. Thanks for watching.